break-in at the Watergate building uncovers a complex web of lies and dirty tricks leading to the President of the United States. Rookie Washington Post reporters Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein chase leads down blind alleys in their desperate quest for the truth. Alan J. Pakula's All the President's Men became a part of a unique moment in history as it was still unravelling. Incredible performances and writing have cemented the film as the benchmark in journalistic thrillers. My name is Luke, and with me are ATRM's very own Woodward and Bernstein, Matt.
Garage freak. Jesus, what kind of crazy fucking story is this?
And Westy.
If you're going to hype it with the facts. I don't mind what you did, I mind the way you did it.
All the right movies are following the money all the way to the White House in search of All the President's Men. Hi everyone, welcome to All the Right Movies, a flawlessly researched and written podcast on classic and hit films.
We shall see.
Set myself up there.
I know you did. Don't speak for everyone.
We've got a very big one on our hands today, and nothing's riding on this, fellas, except the First Amendment to the Constitution, freedom of the press, and maybe the future of the country.
Yep. No pressure.
Yep.
It is a throwback to a bygone era of movie making. It's All the President's Men.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Huge.
Oh, yes.
Huge.
Almost too big.
Almost. Now, this is quite a landmark in the history of All the Right Movies. 4 years and 2 days ago,
Wow.
5th of July, 2019, we released our first ever podcast.
Oh, lovely.
wow.
Yes. Really? Mm-hmm. They were on Jaws and Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
We've talked about some huge films in that time, chaps. This is our 77th classic podcast. We've done 48 Patreon episodes and 6 interviews. And all of those shows are available in our podcast archive, which you can gain immediate access to by becoming an All the Right Movies Patreon supporter. Mm-hmm. Our biggest fans support us on Patreon. On top of the podcast archive, you get access to a brand new episode every month of our Patreon exclusive show, Double Feature.
Yeah.
You get to vote for the films that we cover on that show, ask questions which we'll answer on the show as well. Mm-hmm. And finally, we have an exclusive Twitter film community, which is only open to our patrons and our Twitter subscribers.
Yeah.
That's a proposition not to be missed. So go to patreon.com/alltherightmovies to sign up. If you are able to support us, we'd very much appreciate it because it allows us to continue what we're doing and do more of it.
Yes, we really, really would. It'd be
if you
amazing.
can, please do.
Just have a look. It'd be great.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think we've got them by the balls there. I'm sure their hearts and minds will follow now.
Oh, of course they will.
Yes, they will.
So, back to All the President's Men. Matt, why are we talking about this?
It just ticks so many boxes for me. I love the whole 70s aesthetic that it has. I'm a sucker for a good conspiracy thriller, even more so when it's intertwined with a story about journalists investigating a cover-up and getting to the truth. Anything like that.
Brilliant.
Spotlight from a few years ago, I'm all in. And
Catnip.
acting-wise, we're talking to the great two, Redford and Hoffman, who we've never really talked about in any great detail, maybe just kind of here and there in the past. Yeah. And even outside of it as a film, the whole subject matter I find really interesting. It sounds really naive now considering the last 5 years, but the idea that the American president would be at the center of a criminal conspiracy is absolutely shocking.
Outrageous.
And the fact that he was brought down just by 2 journalists who just kept digging away at the story, it's really fascinating to me, and it's a great document of the time and how it happened.
Very much. Yes, yes. What about you, Westy?
I mean,
not entirely positive.
Not entirely positive. It's an Excel spreadsheet of a film, this, for me, and they give us panic attacks anyway. I mean, it's typewriters, paper, notes, telephones, tabs, feet on desks, perms, corduroy,
Brilliant.
Smells like shoe polish and Old Spice. It's got this real kind of vibe to it. If you don't keep up with it, you are fucked. You are gone. Like, if you don't listen to something on the telephone, and you'd miss 1 or 2 words or one name, and you can't keep grasp of it. It disappears from the whole, from your psyche, really. Mm-hmm. I love it, but I don't quite know why. I've seen it 16 times, and I still don't know what it's about. I couldn't name the middle of the film. It's like, this week, honest to God, I've watched it like twice a day. Just to go, I pride myself on being, fairly intelligent, not a fucking moron, but this film makes me feel like a fucking idiot. But I do love it for that reason. I do love it that it doesn't really pull any punches, and it doesn't give you a chance to breathe, and it doesn't it doesn't suffer fools. So for that reason, I'm here to talk about it, and I'm also here to learn everything about it from you two. So this is an experience for me.
Shit, no pressure, Matt.
Honest to God, you both understand it more than I do. What Matt said there, I was like, oh, fucking hell, really? The president. Here we go. When was he in it?
Wonderful. Well, it's one of those films for me that is kind of like best in class in the genre.
Right.
If you're making a journalistic-based drama, it better be close to this film. Otherwise, just don't bother.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because it's conquered the genre, kind of like The Exorcist and demonic possession films.
Yeah.
There's just no point in making another one because they all pale in comparison, and I feel the same way about this film.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of Pakula's films, and quite honestly, you touched on it, Matt, and I think you're right, but we have talked about Redford on one of our Christmas shows when we talked about 3 Days of the Condor.
Very briefly.
But it is inexcusable that we've not talked once about Dustin Hoffman, the great Hoffman.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Inexcusable. This has been a long time coming. And I would expect a glut of Hoffman suggestions in our polls coming up in the next few months as well, because
I'm sure there will be.
There are a load to get into.
I'm spoiled for choice.
The great Hoffman.
Yeah.
All the President's Men was written by William Goldman and directed by Alan J. Pakula. Produced by Walter Koblenz for Wildwood Enterprises and distributed by Warner's on April 4th, 1976. Filmed on location in Washington, D.C., the film stars Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman as Woodward and Bernstein, with outstanding support coming from Jason Robards, Hal Holbrook, Martin Balsam, Jack Warden, and Jane Alexander.
Yeah.
We're headed to the Watergate complex, 1972, for the opening scene of All the President's Men.
The beginning.
We're picking up the action immediately after the intro to the film, the foiled break-in where the deceit begins to be slowly unpicked. Westy.
Yeah.
You're going to kick us off?
I'll kick us off with the break-in, the only bit I understand from start to finish. Makes perfect sense to me, this. 5 guys break into a complex, it's dark, there's walkie-talkies, they get found out. They get found out by Frank Willis, who's the security guard, but he was the actual security guard who found them out. He was out of work from then until he did this film.
Oh, really?
This is the first bit of work that he had.
Fantastic.
And the way he finds out, they've just masking taped the doors.
Shoddy,
open.
Isn't it?
It's all shoddy.
Amateurish.
It's all really shoddy. Because when they first communicate with each other, he goes, Unit 1 to Unit 2, and he just goes, what? Why does it take 5 people to be there? And the only reason they were there, they'd already bugged the place. They were just changing the batteries because the batteries ran out. That's
Shit luck.
Yeah, that's the only reason. Five grown men. How many grown men does it take to change a battery? 5 by the looks of it. But it is beautifully shot by Willis. You're brought into it. You understand there's something not quite right here. And I think it's great when you got the undercover cops turning up and they ask for the patrol car. So they're getting gas. You go. All right.
Yeah.
How long does it take to get gas?
All wearing fishing hats.
Yeah, brilliant. They're absolute bumbling morons, and you want to see them actually convicted at the start. You're like, I actually want to go after these guys. I hate them. Idiots. But yeah, a great sequence and a great way to open the film.
Yeah, nice early showing from F. Murray Abraham as well as one of the cops.
Yes, yeah.
Very nice.
One thing that stands out for me is I can't think of many other films where our protagonists are introduced in such an unremarkable manner as Woodward and Bernstein. Bernstein's just hovering about in the background, getting on everyone's nerves.
Split diopter every
split
time.
Diopter. Love a split diopter
all
in this.
over his shirt. He's got like mustard on his shirt and stuff.
Yeah.
And Woodward just lazing about in bed. He's not hot on the trail of a breaking story when they get him to cover this and said he's just, just looks like he can't be bothered. And then even in the courtroom, just milling about, all the other journals look really bored. You think, well, what on earth's going on here? That could be interesting. But I think that's what's really good about Pakula's work is that he sticks to the realism of what's going on, but he catches your attention and draws you into it at the same time. How he shows Woodward constantly badgering Markham. Just very
That's
casual. Who are you? Why are you here? But it's Markham's response when he goes, I'm not here.
Yeah.
Immediately
Clearly I
sus. Clearly I am. Tries to backtrack. Be like, well, you've given the game away already, mate. It's like, what's he saying? These guys are just idiots. Right from the off, couldn't be more suspicious if he tried. And then I love Woodward following him around in that really casual manner because he knows something isn't right, just following him to the water fountain, sliding into frame behind him when he sat back down. And I do love that bit because Markham is so sick of him by this point.
Yeah.
The expression on his face, Jesus Christ, this guy.
His delivery reminds me of? It reminds me of, why are you so unpopular with the Chicago Police Department? I expect him to ask that question every single time.
Pain in the ass this guy is.
Yeah, so it's the way he's so dogged and persistent. I think Pakula puts that across in a very clever way visually, and it gets to one of the central ideas behind the story. Like when the defendants line up and one of them says he works for the CIA or used to, you can barely hear him. Woodward's like, what did he say? Did he mention the CIA? And that's it. That's the film. You've got to
leans forward as well, doesn't he?
He leans forward, and that's what you've got to do.
Yeah.
You've got to what did they say? Pay close attention to the details because that's what it's all about. And they're very much blink and you'll miss them.
Yeah. Redford's great when he's got the pen in his mouth and he's like, CIA. Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't really know what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I just love the scene where he's trying to track down Howard Hunt. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he can quite believe it himself that after just a couple of phone calls, he's managed to track him down. And he's clearly out of his depth. He's kind of stumbling over his words. He says, I was just kind of wondering why your name and phone number are in the address book of two men from Watergate. And good God. And he writes down, good God. Wonderful. Because he knows he's onto something. And this small, seemingly innocuous phone call starts the ball rolling on the whole thing. And just the framing of this scene is just... It's just the filmmaking overall in this film, masterful.
Yeah.
But Redford is massive in that frame, dominating the screen. Like he's overfilling it. He has the kind of like the power. He's onto something. Bob Woodward has the upper hand. But then, as the phone call goes on, he's speaking to the guy who's speaking Spanish and he doesn't understand him. He becomes smaller in the frame.
Yeah.
He's losing it, and then becomes bigger when he's speaking to Mr. Bennett. He finds out that Hunt worked for the CIA. And it's only very slight, but great visual, subliminal storytelling. Yeah. Really, really like that.
I also think that's a bit of an outtake when he says, "Do you guys speak English? It's Spanish." You know, he kind of shouts over. It's
definitely is.
Yeah,
it is. The telephone number that Woodward dials for the White House is the real number of the White House switchboard.
Wow.
456-1414. So if you want to put a call in.
Give Drew a bell. See how he's getting on.
Hello.
Probably falling over.
Yeah,
falling over a banana skin, I imagine.
Just looking for the phone.
After this sequence, Woodward and Bernstein have a frosty introduction, but join forces on this compelling story. We're picking up the action, starting with a phone call to the library and ending it with Ben Bradley reviewing Woodward and Bernstein's work. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting off with this conversation that Bernstein has with the librarian over the telephone.
Yeah,
nice.
Hunt took out a number of materials, but is then told the truth. The truth is that there was no request at all from Mr. Hunt. The truth is, I don't know Mr. Hunt. All right, brilliant.
Very believable.
Well, what is the truth? Because you said the truth is this 5 times.
Yeah.
But she's great on the other end of the phone.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Great performance. And Woodward gets on the phone to Ken Carlson, and he's trying to find out more information. He gets the cold cock. He says the librarian denies that the conversation took place. And Bernstein's listening, and he's furious. Total bullshit.
Not having it, is he?
Yeah.
He's great.
No, total bullshit.
Yeah.
And I just love that, the building of the relationship between Woodward and Bernstein. You can see how their dynamic is effective in getting the job done and doing the job right. You can see where their strengths and weaknesses are just in this passage of play. Fantastic. And it's the tantalizing dead ends that I love so much. You know that there's something there, but you're going to have to work very hard to get to the truth.
Yeah.
Very, very similar. If you can cast your mind back, Westy, to the conversation that we had around Zodiac.
Yeah.
And my love of kind of like that procedural kind of narrative throughout the entire film. And you can see the influence that this film had on Zodiac
leaps and
all
bounds.
the way through.
He loves this film, Fincher.
Yeah, of course he does.
It's the same film, basically.
It's basically the same film. Yeah. Even the officers look the same.
Yeah, exactly the same.
Just more library cards here.
Well, on that matter, over to you, Westy.
Yeah. Do love this sequence. I love when they go to the library and he's like, I've got him. Not sure if you want him, but I've got him. And he just puts them all down. And you just think, that's what I think watching the film. I'm like, right, here we go. And I do love getting engaged with it, but I've got to concentrate so hard.
Very much.
And I feel like it's these guys looking through the library cards and they're just saying to the audience, look, this is how much you need to concentrate on the rest of this film. Otherwise, you're going to get lost. Mm-hmm. And the great thing that Pakula does with the camera and Gordon Willis does with the camera is just takes you up and out of the scene and shows how complex this film's going to be.
Yes.
And it's incredible the way they did that. I mean, it's a remote-controlled cable system, and the primary cable was attached to a winch at the ceiling. Mm-hmm. And then they basically had to move it so it became central in the frame. And Ray de la Motte, who was the first AC, he was the focus puller on it. And bearing in mind, this was, before you had digital, before you had monitors, he didn't know what the focus is going to be. You have to measure the distance between the lens and the subject, and you then have to pull focus as that distance changes.
Mm-hmm.
So as that's going up, he's got no idea the distance. He's just going to have to guess it. And Gordon Willis said it was the finest moment of focus pulling he's ever seen in his career. He said he was amazed that anything was in focus. Anything, and they only did it twice.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible.
And when they go through, they do like a transition, so it kind of cross transitions to show a passage of time. But they did that because the camera wasn't really in the center of the actual building. It just started off on them; they were on the side, and it slightly moves back. So as it moves back, that's where the transition is to show it's central, which again is genius in the editing. It's genius from the first AC. It's genius from Gordon Willis, because Gordon Willis said to Pakula, he's like, "I love it, but I don't know if I can do it." He's like, loving it and doing it are two completely separate things. When I saw that shot, I thought, right, this is worthy of my attention now. A shot like that this early in the film, that should be the ending.
I knew you would love it, Westy.
That's your final shot in it. It's just, I'm looking at it going, yes, I absolutely fucking adore that. And the way that they did it, in an analog way, just humans being so incredibly technically good at what they're doing. It's just a master stroke. It's just absolutely unbelievably done technically, and it really, really works for the story. Like, it's not showy for any reason.
No,
it shows the audience like, this is how complicated this is going to be. So strap in.
It's not flashy. It's not done just because you can do it. It's done to aid the narrative.
Exactly, and it does aid the narrative because you kind of go, right, well, they're in the middle of this complex fucking maze almost, and nobody's helping them but them to themselves. So yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful sequence, and probably one of my favourite in the film.
Needle in a haystack. It's shot in the Library of Congress, but there was some resistance to them shooting in the Library of Congress, much like Woodward and Bernstein themselves.
Yeah.
So they had to get the president of the MPAA to put a call in to allow them to shoot in the Library of Congress.
I think that's only why they did it twice. I didn't think they had a lot of time. If you look at the rig as well, it's just like a wooden box.
Yeah.
It's not really technical.
Yeah, it's a rudimentary contraption, isn't it?
Yeah, why do you put that thousands pounds camera in there with film stock in it? Give that to the focus puller who's going to guess as it goes up there. We're going to do it twice, and you get that. It's just ridiculous.
That's why he's the master?
Willis, absolutely.
Willis.
100%.
What are you talking about, Willis?
What are you talking about, Willis? I'm talking about putting that fucking camera up there. That's what I'm talking about. Get it done. Amazing.
Matt, what about you in this sequence?
I love it all. But just once in my life, I'd like to enter a room or a conversation with the authority that Robots does here is Ben Bradley when he comes in to take that story apart. It's amazing. The way everyone just holds the breath and just sits up a little bit more because he's coming into the room. And, Woodward and Bernstein, they're sitting down. Rosenfeld, which is Jack Warden, he's got a little bit of authority so he can sit on the desk. But Bradley is just like, nah, screw you all. I get to put my feet up on the desk. Yeah. You guys don't.
Does it all the way through the film as well?
Does it all through the film? It's such a low-key little touch, but it's brilliant. It's a great character introduction. And so much storytelling just by the look on his face. Like, you can see he's kind of laughing at the story at one point because he's saying, is this it? This is what they've got me out of my office for, to look at this. Yeah. The look on his face when Woodward says, I don't know how high up this horse goes, what the job title is. It's devastating, the look of disappointment he gives him. It's like, when you had your favourite teacher at school and you gave what you think was a really clever answer and the teacher's just like, what is wrong with you?
Why you starts crossing it out in front of you?
Crossing out. Why did you think that was the right thing to say? It's devastating.
See me after school.
Yeah, the red pen.
That's it. You see the heart sinking with every slash of that red pen.
Yeah.
And when Bernstein snaps it, this is a goddamn important story, the way Bradley silences him, just that look. Who do you think you are?
Just that's over his shoulder, isn't it?
Yeah. It's amazing. And it gets to the heart of why this story was so hard to crack, because it wasn't so much getting the people to talk and getting the fact. It was actually convincing someone like Ben Bradley that it's worth printing. Yeah. And this scene is so good at demonstrating the high standards that he set for them to get over.
Mm-hmm. It's the way that shot is framed, like you said, Matt. Bradley's deep into the detail of this story, or lack of detail for that matter. Yeah. But the other actors, they're kind of almost hanging their head in shame that they know they didn't get it.
Yeah.
Fantastic stuff. So 2 great sequences, a great opening, and a goddamn important story. But Woodward and Bernstein need some harder information.
They do.
The director.
The man at the centre of everything isn't Richard Nixon. It's Alan J. Pakula. Another person that we haven't spoken about in our 4-year history. No. Now is his time in the ATRM limelight.
It is.
Matt, what are your thoughts on his work as director? Return of the Pack.
Pakula Matata.
That's it then.
That's it. Yeah. I think his work here is very rigorous and very detailed, and he doesn't allow himself much in the way of flash. And I think that's really difficult for a director to do, to be so disciplined. But he has the confidence that the story is so strong and relevant that that's where the interest is going to lie. But even despite that, it's still impressive how he manages to make the film as gripping as it is, because the story, in terms of its detail, a lot of it is extremely mundane. You know, we've been talking about scenes where they look through library cards. That doesn't sound very exciting.
How excited did we get about that, though?
Exactly, yeah. Well, exactly. That's it. That's it. That's the brilliance of it. And I think what helps is he moves the film along at a cracking pace, even though it doesn't feel like it, because they find one lead, it cuts to the next scene where they follow it up. That leads him somewhere else, he cuts to that. And it has this momentum of like pulling at one thread that undoes something else, and so on and so on, and you just keep pulling at it. And I think that's why he can have a film packed full of these small details, but is still engrossing. You know, so many phone calls in this film, but none of them drag on. Each one is punchy and to the point. It's question, answer, hang up, make the next call, scribble a note down, big close-up on that note, cut away to the next one. There's very little downtime, and Pakula really taps into that idea of the fact that the story is gathering pace in the background. And it is frustrating because nobody can see that big picture yet, but there is something there. And I think how he puts that on screen is very impressive.
Very much.
You know, he does allow himself a little bit of visual flair every now and then. We've mentioned the library cards, you know, the garage meets with Deep Throat with that great use of shadow. And I think it's quite brave of him to say, yeah, the legwork of what these guys had to do was quite tedious, but the way I'll put it on screen isn't. And part of that was he wanted the camera work to be very static at the start, very little movement. But as the investigation grows and the stakes are raised, it does become more mobile. And then till you get to that like peak moment of that great tracking shot of Woodward and Bernstein running through the office when they've made the, you know, the real big breakthrough. And that moment, it's such a release. It's such a release of tension. It's like, oh, yeah, they're finally moving on this thing. It's brilliant. Yeah, I think his work's pretty exceptional, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, just with you saying there, Matt, about finding excitement in the mundane, just while you've been talking, I've been thinking 3 of the moments that I've chosen to talk about are phone calls. Westy's talking about 2 people meeting in a car park twice.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, exactly.
Both are drastically different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very, very low-key film, very understated, like you're saying. Minimal title cards at the start, minimal music, very simple, no action to speak of. And I think that works in great contrast with the enormous themes and narrative of the film. I think he's got this sense that it doesn't need to be anything flashy because just the subject matter speaks for itself. Not even like the biggest car chase or gunfight could ever overshadow it. So there's no point, there's no need. Obviously, there's no place for it either. But in a traditional tight thriller, there would certainly be place for it.
Yeah,
I think maybe I'm looking at it through a 2023 lens, but it's a risky move to make because it just isn't written the way films are usually written. You don't have any of the narrative beats that you would normally have. There's no love interest, no car chases, no action sequences, no tangible on-screen villain.
No.
And the 2 heroes are constantly being thwarted and undermined at every step of the way.
Yeah.
But somehow he makes one of the most tense, edge-of-your-seat thrillers that I've ever seen. And I think it's in the subtle choices he makes, like you said, Matt. The pace he keeps really helps. He makes even the most mundane of tasks, like cold calling at people's doors, feel like life or death stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it is a shame that he's not more widely regarded as a director, because he did some great work in the 70s, did some solid stuff in the 80s and 90s as well. But particularly in this film, when he's working with Gordon Willis, DP, this is an absolute dream team for me. The idiosyncratic choices that they make together makes this film like stand head and shoulders above most in the decade. It's a magnificent film and great work from Pakula.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. I think he makes this look easy. It seems like he's having a great time. It doesn't seem like there's a problem here. Everyone's having a great time. All of the actors know exactly where their limits are. But everyone seems to be on the same page, and I want to talk about how he balances the likes of Redford and Hoffman, and it feels like they're both important. And they both own the film when they're by themselves. And then when they're both together, it just feels like a natural fit. And I think
it doesn't feel like a power struggle, does it?
No, not at all. I think it's one of them really rare films where, I mean, Butch Cassidy's the same for me. But maybe that's just Redford. I don't really see him as like a lean man per se, but I think when he's with somebody, he really shines. And this is like Newman and McQueen in Town Inferno. It's got that similar kind of villain where it just seems like everybody agrees, and I think Pakula brings that, and he keeps everything grounded, and he knows where everything's going, and Willis is like, I want you to split diopters on 90% of this. He's like, right, Sam. Because he wants depth in the frame. He wants people to see what's happening. He wants to have that tension, but at the same time, it's not an anxiety tension. It's just I want to find out more tension, which is really what makes this film so watchable. I think. I mean, he's the king of it. Clute, Parallax View, Pelican Brief, even.
Yeah.
He was an absolute genius of handling tone. If he'd still been around now, he would have made mincemeat out of where governments and politics and wherever everything is now. We would have kicked the shit out of it, and we need somebody like that around to do it. But it's so unfair that he's not. But in this film, flawless.
Yeah, masterpiece. Pakula wasn't the only name in the frame. We always like to hear this. William Friedkin was considered.
You do.
You do.
As was Michael Ritchie, who just directed Redford in The Candidate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Ritchie would get to direct his own journalistic reporter masterpiece in 1985 when he did Fletch.
Just the first
one. Yes, indeed.
Right.
Yes, indeed. A classic for sure. And John Schlesinger declined the gig because he felt it should be directed by an American.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Redford chose Pakula because they had the same thought on how to approach the material, with absolute truth to the story being told.
Yeah.
Redford saw the film as a small indie with unknown actors, and Pakula convinced him that it needs to be a big film. He said, we were dealing with something that could alter our view of investigative journalism and political office, so it had to feel big.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that he drafted in DP Gordon Willis.
Yeah, location shooting was taken advantage of as much as possible because the Washington Post wouldn't allow Pakula to shoot in their offices. So a replica office was built at Warner Burbank Studios. Exact measurements were taken. It looks exactly the same, extensive photos, even like some of the printouts. It was absolutely to the point. But Gordon Willis was thinking, well, I can light this any way that I want it. But he wanted to light it exactly the same as the Washington Post. So that included 700 fluorescent units to light the whole set. And when you're shooting on fluorescent on film, it looks disgusting. Like fluorescent too green, and it looks awful. So what they did when they did the print is they shot with cyan lenses, so they had a little bit more cyan, and they took some green out, and he balanced that all the way through.
All right, great.
And you're not going to be asked about this, but the exposure was set to T4.5, which for me is like really strange because that's not going to give you much depth to the frame. You're going to need like T11 or something to get that real depth and see the back of the room. So the wider your aperture, the more your background's going to be out of focus. But he lit it to T4.5, which I mean that's quite bright. And the gaffer had to take all of the ballast units that powered all of the fluorescents and take them with using 135 miles of wire, by the way, off the soundstage and put them in air-cooled boxes because the hum from them was too loud. Right. And it would actually bleed onto the dialogue and everything else. So they used 135 miles of cable. And Gordon Willis said, again, that was one of the finest gaffer moments because there was never a shortage. There was never a flicker. There was never an output that didn't work. Everything was flawless. Absolutely unreal.
Amazing.
As well as that, though, they brought in 150 desks from the same place that the Post got theirs from. Right. They had 1 ton of scrap paper to decorate the desk with, and some of the actual reporters would donate their own desk clutter. So personal photos from home or books or whatever, or to add to the authenticity of it. And apparently when they went to the set, they were blown away by how accurate it was. And one of the Oscars this film did win was for George Jenkins, who was the production designer.
Yeah. And you talked about depth there, Westy. Jenkins also used false perspectives at the back of the set to increase the depth in the frame. Right. So desks and shelves were cut down accordingly, and background artists were chosen because of their height relative to the perspective.
Oh, well, there you go. T4.5 works then. That's no problem.
Yeah, what he said.
Yeah, thank God.
To wrap us up on Alan Pakula, we've got a question from one of our Patreon supporters. I mentioned Patreon benefits earlier. Another one is that you can put forward your questions for the films that we're covering and we'll answer them live on the show. Mm-hmm. And this is the first question, and that comes from Thomas Frost. Howdy, Thomas.
Hello, Thomas.
Great surname.
Great first name. Great guy.
Yeah.
Great guy? Yeah. Thomas asks, where does this rank among the other great paranoid thrillers of the era? Westy.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, there was just so many, wasn't there? And so many good ones. And I think it's this team that were attached to them. I mean, Parallax View, that was these guys. It was Willis as well. Clute it was Willis as well. It's, Pakula, and Conversation.
Yeah.
Soylent Green was was right up there, early doors. This is second for me, if I'm going to answer the question and get to the point.
Okay.
First for me is 3 Days of the Condor. I just
really
really enjoy it more. It's just got a little bit more of a pace. It's a bit more simple because I've just most of the time I don't want to be stressed when I'm watching a film, and I feel really stressed when I'm watching this one. I still feel stressed when I'm watching 3 Days of the Condor, but not as much. So that's why it wins over for me. And Redford is still marvelous in both.
Yeah, Redford's great. Yeah, it's a Pollock film as well, isn't it? You can't go wrong with Sidney Pollock.
Yeah. Very close, though. Very close.
Oh, yeah. Very close.
Yeah.
What about you, Matt?
Yeah, loads to like. All the ones Westy mentioned. Marathon Man as well. I'll throw that in.
Yes.
Go back a bit further. The original.
I've mentioned about 5 incredible films. Marathon Man. Woo!
I love Marathon Man.
I love Marathon Man. I hate the dentist. Yeah, great.
I've thrown the original Manchurian Candidate as well. That was great. Frankenheimer. Loved that.
Nice.
Then ones that come after Spotlight's great, like I said. But I think this one will always be the top one for me purely because of the factual basis of it. Like the others are great, but to me, you just can't compare a fictional conspiracy on screen, no matter how well done it is, to something that really happened, to something where lives were in peril and, was something that did have genuine real world ramifications that this story did.
Yeah, you just can't argue with it, can you?
That's it, yeah. That's why you can't, So it would be this one for me for that reason.
Yeah. Pakula's the granddaddy in this genre, isn't he? You mentioned them. He's Paranoid Trilogy, Clute, The Parallax View, All the President's Men. Yeah. Some of my favourites from any genre, from any decade. There's a lesser known one called The Domino Principle, which is great.
Right, okay.
Gene Hackman.
Right, not seen that.
But the one that is a contender to All the President's Men's throne, for me, is Blowout.
I knew that would come in here.
Of course.
Of course it is. Of course it is, yeah.
Of course.
Split Diopter, De Palma,
Travolta, Nancy Allen.
Headphones. Great
Just at the tail end of this fine run of kind of conspiracy films that came out in 81.
It's not 70s conspiracy, you're not allowed to put it in. You've shoehorned it in.
I'm fine because Matt said the Manchurian Candidate, and that's like 63 or something.
Spotlight. Okay.
Yeah, but De Palma, Travolta, Philadelphia, I'm desperate to cover it on Classic. And I have been since we started. Yeah. It's failed miserably on poll after poll after poll.
Yeah.
One of these days, some people are going to make my wish come true.
You have to put it on as a double feature, probably. But
I have, and it came last.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to help. But what did you put it up with?
Dressed to Kill. Another De Palma sleazy classic. Just to bring it back on track. Blowout, All the President's Men. If they were to duke it out, I think it'd be a split decision.
Right.
With All the President's Men just pipping
Split
Blowout. Split Diopter.
On the two films. That's a lovely move, yeah.
So, an incredible showing from Pakula, probably the jewel in his very underappreciated directing crown.
Oh, absolutely.
The cast.
The coming together of two of the greats from the decade dominates our cast section. We're starting off with Dustin Hoffman. Westy, it's over to you.
Yeah, great hair. Great outfits.
Great start.
Great.
He's great hair.
He is great. He's like a kid, isn't he? He's just a really excitable kid. Like, he reminds me of my son in the opening sequence when he's standing in the doorway. He's like, what's happening now?
Yeah.
He's really charismatic, but he's not creepy. Yeah. And this character should be creepy and pretty annoying, to be honest. The way he just hounds people and wants to know answers. The way he just picks up the story and starts rewriting it and polishing it, but he backs it up with that charisma, and I think he is wonderful. And against Redford, I was always thinking, I mean, you see him like in Midnight Cowboy, and you're like, wow, what the fuck, that's an incredible performance.
Yeah.
But you know for a fact that he can hold the film when he's by himself, and as I've said before, and Redford can hold the film when he's by himself, and that's a very rare thing. And there's a massive trust between him and the director. He's not scared to push in on a close-up. He's not scared to go to a wide shot. He's got a physicality. When he comes back into the room and he's had 20 cups of coffee, you believe he has. It's just a wonderfully fast-paced, the way he's speaking the dialogue and he's delivering it and he knows it so well. Really accomplished, really excellent performance, and it's very, very watchable. And it's hard to say because he shouldn't be next to Redford. He should be like a troll under a bridge, as everyone should be, a beautiful man. But Hoffman holds his own. He's like, no, I'm going to smoke in every single scene. And I'm going to make it look cool. You kind of go, how annoying is it to stand next to someone who's kind of small, impish, big hair, really thinks a lot of himself, and having a tab in a lift, you want to knock him out? But Hoffman, I'd be like, no, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. And he pulls it off. He's fucking great in this. Trainers with a suit every time. Love it.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen two performers in a film, two lead performers, have such a natural balance.
Yeah,
as
it
these
seems like
two
the best
do.
friends.
Yeah. I think Hoffman on his own is fantastic. And I think Bernstein's like a chameleon the way he goes about his job. He's kind of flirty with the women that he meets when he's trying to wheedle out information. But then he plays the kind of klutz a little bit when he's talking to the bookkeeper to make himself kind of seem maybe unthreatening.
Yeah.
He gets tough with Dardis when he doesn't get what he wants.
Yeah. Manipulates the secretary and gets in that way.
Exactly, yeah.
Brilliant.
And I don't think we see the real Bernstein, and I think that's great range from Hoffman. Very subtle. And obviously a reason why he's one of the best.
Yeah.
Thing is about Hoffman, though, like, he was probably the biggest star at the time. Redford had hits, but nothing on the scale of like Straw Dogs, Graduate, Midnight Cowboy.
Yeah.
And by this point, Hoffman already been nominated for 3 Oscars, I think, by this point. So they did have to have that conversation about billing. And what they went back to, have you seen The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, the John Ford Western?
Oh, yeah.
Which has got James Stewart and John Wayne, obviously both huge at the time. And they took inspiration from that because what they decided to do was, if you watch the trailer or if you look at the posters, it's Redford who gets top billing, but in the actual credits of the film, it's Hoffman. And that's the balance they decided on.
It's the dynamic. It works as well because they've got to agree, and that goes through the whole film. They do agree on the rules and stick to it.
Yeah. I think Hoffman, considering where we are now, I think Hoffman got the best deal. Considering his name comes first, nobody sees any of the ads anymore.
No.
The posters are a thing of the past with streaming.
Yeah, exactly.
They spent a lot of time with Woodward, the actual Woodward and Bernstein. Woodward was more reserved with Redford, but Bernstein and Hoffman got on like a house on fire. Yeah. Hoffman was invited for dinner, and he wore Bernstein's watch throughout filming. I think he's more kind of your method man, isn't he?
He is, yeah. And also, Hoffman requested that there was an exact replica of Bernstein's wallet made with everything that was inside his wallet.
Wonderful.
And wore it through the whole production. Like, it's exact replica of it. Like, the receipts that were in there, as how much money was in there, everything.
Fantastic. Yeah. He's renowned for that, isn't he?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Both actors learned each other's lines so the characters could naturally finish one another's lines.
Too much. Yeah. That's outrageous, that.
It is crazy.
It's outrageous.
Yeah.
Redford said it was important because they're two totally different characters with different religious beliefs and political backgrounds, but they are in harmony with their thoughts and motivations generally.
Yeah. When he gets his political views across when they're sitting talking to Sloan, and he just looks at him. Yeah. He's like, man.
I am too.
I'm a Republican.
Yeah, great.
I am too. Like, what?
Yeah.
And Matt, you're obviously going to be talking about Bobby Redford.
Certainly am.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great hair on him as well.
Great hair. Lovely.
Great face.
Buffon. Yeah. Lovely hair. Wears his suit amazingly well. Love him in this.
Yeah.
I just think Woodward, it demands a very particular kind of actor, which Redford is, because it's a very cerebral performance. It has to be someone who could convince you this is a guy who is a real politics nerd, but also does have that killer journalistic instinct, and he's someone who's really intelligent. And Redford just makes it a really internalized performance and puts on screen the idea that this is a man whose mind is constantly racing, constantly putting things together, all these leads, all these clues. So, as much as I love them, I can't imagine someone like Nicholson or De Niro doing this part, because it's not about being a big movie star charisma.
Yeah.
It's about keeping that all inside and resisting every impulse to come across like a big star. And just coming across instead as a guy who is obviously very intelligent, but other than that, and no disrespect intended, but probably just not all that interesting.
A little bit bland.
He doesn't have an arc. Mm-hmm. He's diligent and he's studious. He's probably not that much fun to go down the pub with.
No.
But Redford really gets into that and really makes that work somehow, which I think is really impressive.
Yeah, and he never really uses anybody until we'll get to the bookkeeper at the end. But the way that Hoffman's character, Bernstein just manipulates people and uses the charisma. Yeah. You just look at Robert Redford and go, all you need to do is talk to anyone for 5 minutes and you get any information
put you in their hands.
Exactly. But he has this real honesty and this integrity. A real integrity,
Yeah, he does. Which again is interesting because that's the type of thing, I think, as an actor you might think, it's a bit boring, that he's a bit of a Boy Scout. about, but Redford just sticks to it. And I think that's brilliant. And it's obviously not a buddy movie, but so much of this does rest on how Redford and Hoffman play off each other, and they do that brilliantly. Like the scene where Woodward clocks at Bernstein is picking up his work from the copy desk and rewriting it. That is brilliant because it establishes that relationship in just a few lines so efficiently. Like when Woodward confronts him about it, there's no ego. You know, he says, I don't mind what you did. I mind the way you did it. Get it right. And boom, there you go. That's
Great
all they
balance.
need to.
And Bernstein's just like, I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's amazing.
That initial understanding.
Yeah.
I love that scene after his first conversation with Hunt. He goes to get the go-ahead from Howard, Martin Balsam's character, and he gives him all the info. He says, I've been told that Mr. Coulson's got no knowledge of Watergate, and he said, I never asked about it. They volunteered that he was innocent when nobody asked if he was guilty. And Howard replies, careful how you write it. Yeah. Great dialogue, that, isn't it?
That's dynamite.
It's when he looks back and says who he knows who Coulson is because he's just asked who he was like in the previous scene. But he turns around and goes, Carl Coulson. He's the assistant of the secretary.
That's fantastic.
Fucking brilliant,
Yeah, wonderful. The story of the film starts with Robert Redford. He was promoting the candidate and was on a train from Jacksonville to Miami. The Watergate story broke, and he asked journalists who were on the train about it, and they kind of gave him the brush off, but suggested the story may be deeper than originally reported, but that it'll get swept under the carpet because Nixon was too powerful, and he would go after the press.
Yeah.
Redford said this chicken shit journalistic approach kind of irked him. He'd seen Woodward and Bernstein's articles covering the Watergate story, in particular when they implicate Haldeman without corroboration, and he said people who take wild swings and misses interest me. So he contacted the pair to express his interest, but they kind of batted him away. They didn't want it to be too Hollywood-fied. But a key piece of advice given by Redford struck with them when they came to writing their novel, which this film is based on. He told them that the most interesting way to tell a story is laying the evidence out piece by piece as they uncovered it, instead of revealing it all at once. He should make it a detective story.
Yeah. He told them to focus on the method over the result.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a key in the film's success.
Oh, absolutely. You don't even get the result. It's just tapped out for you. It's timed out for you as you watch it. You go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's all about the method.
It is. You're right.
So Redford, trying to get the core of Woodward, said that he was on the surface. Bob appeared to be just perfect. You just knew his lawn was cut. He was very humble, very, very polite. You can really get that.
You do.
But concluded underneath, he had this killer instinct of sheer hard work. He would let Bernstein get away with making assumptions. You mind his character trait, dramatic effect in the film. And you can tell it's just got that real, that's exactly what he does without even saying anything. Yeah. Even if he had no dialogue, you can still see that.
He pulls Bernstein back down, doesn't he? When there's a scene when they're in the car and he keeps on pulling them back to reality.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
He lets him go when he needs to, though. He knows exactly how to use them, but it doesn't seem like it's manipulative. It just seems like he's doing it just for the best of everyone.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to that kind of like moral compass that we were talking about that he has. That you need to get it right. It needs to be right. You can't just take wild flights of fancy.
A real man of integrity,
Doesn't get like personally offended by like Bradley cutting the story down. It's like, no, we didn't have it.
Didn't have it.
That's great. He's just more annoyed that it's not right. He's like, it's not right. I need to get it right.
Yeah.
So, on Redford and Hoffman, we've got our second question from one of our Patreon supporters. This one, it's from Ryan Chippo.
Hello, Ryan.
Hello, Ryan. He asks, where do the performances from Redford and Hoffman rank in their respective careers? He says it's such a solid film and the performances are incredible. I mean, it's obvious. They both had incredible careers. Redford took a slightly different course when he took up directing and producing. I think he always saw himself as more than just an actor. Not to downplay anybody who's just an actor because, I mean, sure, we would jump at the chance.
Well, of course. Despite
the strong field, I don't think you can look too far beyond these performances for Redford. I do like Sneakers. I do like Legal Eagles. But this is, I think this is his best. And it's not full of bluster. It's not as fun and nuanced as Butch Cassidy, let's say.
Yeah.
But this is my favourite from him. It's more of a tough call with Hoffman. I absolutely love him in The Graduate.
Yeah.
I'd say that Lenny's probably a better performance, to be honest. I mean, it's not a barrel of laughs.
No, it's unreal.
Film.
It's an incredible performance. Just don't mention Ishtar, whatever you do.
Number one for me, that.
Matt, number one for you?
Obviously, in with a bullet. I think the difference between them is I think Redford was always more of a movie star, and I do love them both. And I think Hoffman was more of an actor, and he did have the bigger range. And like you said, Redford, I think, also had one eye in becoming a producer and a director. So there's a slight imbalance there, and that I think Hoffman has more competition in terms of great roles. So with Redford, for me, you've got like the double whammy of The Sting and Butch Cassidy. He's great in The Candidate. All is lost from a few years ago. But then with Hoffman, you know, two of the funniest performances I've ever seen in Graduate and Tootsie, but then he can go really dark and gritty, Lenny, Midnight Cowboy, and even up to the present day, doing like smaller stuff like the Mywit story. So for me, I think this would be top 5 for Redford, but it wouldn't be top 5 for Hoffman because of the divergence of careers.
Yeah. I'll go along with that. What about you, Westy?
I'm going to put second, because there was other things that I'd seen, and I'll always remember Hoffman in Rain Man. For me, it was like kind of the first time I'd seen him, and I just thought, Jesus Christ, what fucking performance that is. And it's kind of overlooked now and almost pastiched or a cliche of playing that type of character.
Yeah, very much.
But he does it so well.
He
I
does.
think it's just incredible. And I would put that third, and I'll put All the President's Men second. But the one that resonates with me, the one that lives with me, and the one that I'll say is a performance that will reduce me to tears is him in Sleepers. It's absolutely amazing.
Okay. Love it.
And he's not a main character in it, but he's so important as a character. And as an alcoholic, like he's hired because he's shit, and he knows that. And it's such a heartbreak, and he brings everything to that. I think he's just fucking phenomenal in that film. Yeah, absolutely unbelievable. And again, it's Butch Cassidy third for me, because I think Redford's just so engaging in that film. It's just, you just want to be him. You want to be him more than the lead character. He's just so good. And it's a Sundance Kid, and you're like, how fast are you? Amazing. Yeah, I just want to be that guy. Yes, thanks. All the President's Men second, because I think it's just such a charismatic performance. But again, 3 Good Days of the Condor for me. I think he's just wonderful in that.
Yeah. It is a great performance. Yeah, very much. So, 2 of the best from 2 of the best on All the President's Men. Like we've said, the film is stuffed full of extraordinary character actors. The Washington Post crew alone, made up of Jason Robards, Martin Balsam, Jack Warden, they add so much authenticity to the film. I think these guys feel like they've been working at the Post for decades. They're not actors.
Well, didn't Robards come in on his days off just to hang about in the back of the set so he could get picked up by the camera?
Yeah, that's right.
Amazing. Amazing to do that.
Yeah.
I'll just hang about in case I'm in the background at some point.
Everybody's great in it. I mean, I'd never get tired of anyone. He turns the camera to anybody in this film, and I'm engaged.
Yeah. It's great when Robards is on the phone to Ken Coulson near the end, and he's got his feet up again, a wife and a family, and a dog and a cat. Right. His delivery when he says, I don't want to print that you were in Sally's apartment. I just want to know what you said in Sally's apartment. Great.
Brilliant.
It's brilliant, like when he gets angry with him as well, and he storms out and he goes, Woodstein!
You can't go wrong with
silent.
Woodstein! It's their walk after that. It's like, do you know what it is? I don't know what it is. You know what it is. I don't know what it is.
It's going to the head teacher's office, isn't it?
Exactly.
We're in trouble.
Woodstein!
And he said, we haven't had any luck. Well, get some.
Get some, yeah.
It's as simple as that.
I'm using that.
Yeah.
Great. I haven't got any luck yet. We're going to fucking get some then. It's just, yes, amazing.
Great. I think my favourite's got to be Jack Warden as Harry.
Oh, he's great.
Woodward and Bernstein's enthusiastic sponsor when he's fighting fire with Bradley and Howard. He's full of support for them. And he's such a solid, dependable presence, Warden. It's great when Woodward and Bernstein are butting heads at the start about the article, and he just steams past them. Woodward, Bernstein, you're on the story, so don't fuck it up. I just think the supporting cast are one of the major reasons that the film works. It's one of the greatest ensemble casts for me, and I bloody love a good ensemble cast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So 2 powerhouse performances in the lead roles with supporting cast filled out with some of the most respected character actors of the era.
And it shows.
This episode of All the Right Movies is sponsored by BetterHelp. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work and not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better, because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And a special offer to all ATRM listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/ATRM. That's betterhelp, HELP.com/ATRM. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode of All the Right Movies.
The middle.
The first segment that we're talking about in the second act starts in Deep Background, with the introduction of the playfully nicknamed Deep Throat. And it ends with Woodward's telephone conversation with Kenneth H. Dahlberg. And Westy.
Yeah.
You're going to start us off in Deep Background.
Thanks for that. Could have been a much worse introduction, couldn't it? The way this scene now is almost a cliche of itself.
Yeah.
When you watch it again, there's so many pastiches of this. There's so many. I mean, Chris Carter took it and just ran with it with the X-Files. You know, Definitely. The smoking guy. Yeah. It's just, This is it. There's a conspiracy and somebody has the truth and somebody wants to know the truth. So they meet in an underground car park and it's lit exactly the same. It's always the same. But Willis just invented this. And Hal Holbrook brings such an incredible performance. It's so understated. It's so great. And he knows that where the lighting is and how to work it. And when he first lights that cigarette, you just see that glow. And there's such a lovely orange and teal mix here, which is classic in cinema, but it just works so well, where it's just so blue.
Lovely.
You just get these really lovely touches of orange. And I just love the way Holbrook's shot. I just love the way there's that kind of old-fashioned strip light just across his eyes.
Just his eyes, yeah.
There's that close-up of his eyes as well when he's just, you know he's got the information, but he can't give it over. It's just dark. It's shadowed. He's not revealed at all. So it's perfect for the character, because the character is basically a shadow saying, I can't give you any light unless you find it yourself. Yeah. And we'll go into this, and the more that he meets him, the more he's kind of lit a little bit more, and the more of it's revealed a little bit more. But this first meeting is just absolutely wonderful, because there's just that whistling in the background, and it just ramps up that paranoia, and there's always eerie, this kind of really low, constant hum in the background, and you're always on edge, and it's just really, really well done. I do love sequences in multi-story car parks. I don't know why. You start Highlander, it's amazing. But it's just, it has that.
On par with this, I think.
Yeah, well, I've got Highlander and All the President's Men. I never thought I'd be able to do it. But it's just great. His dialogue's great. When he's talking about Liddy putting his hand over the candle, and he says, the trick is just not minding.
Yeah.
The trick is not caring.
That's incredible dialogue, isn't it?
It's just so powerful, where it's just, you can do anything as long as you don't care what people think. As long as you don't care about what you're doing to yourself, as long as you're looking for the truth, you have to hold your hand over that candle and don't care that it burns. And that's his advice, and you get the classic line that's been used over and over again, and it was invented in this, and it's follow the money.
Yeah.
Follow that trail, follow that. People have listened, watched this film. I mean, Fincher especially. You'll watch this film and they'll say something like "follow the money," and then they've went, "I've thought of about 50 films from that one line that I can create now." And screenwriters have just went, "Right, follow the money. Okay, there's a money trail. There's a trail to this. It's got this kind of real depth to it, and it ramps the paranoia up exactly when you need it to, and it's still and it's steady and it's quiet, because the newsroom is constantly going. There's just sound design is just constant barrage of people talking and typewriters and." Everything's just so busy, and then all of a sudden you're in a dark place. You need to know the answers. You're not getting them. This is where you should get them, and you don't get them, and that's what I love about this scene.
Absolutely. Deep Throat's identity remained a mystery to all until 2005, when former FBI Deputy Director Mark Felt came out as the Mole, as Deep Throat.
Yeah.
Woodward was very quick to corroborate this. It suggested that Felt was disenfranchised in his role in the FBI because he was passed over for the role of director once J. Edgar Hoover died.
Yeah,
right. So that's why he squealed.
Well, Woodward straight in there. Look, see, I was right. Look,
I'm right all along.
I'll be right all along. This guy's just pissed off now because he's not getting what he wants.
I mean, Holbrook, incredible as ever.
Yeah, unreal.
And apparently Holbrook, he was the only choice, and Woodward was a real advocate for him because he felt there was a strong physical resemblance between Holbrook and Felt, although he didn't make that obvious to Pakula.
Yeah, I mean, he's kept that. He's done well to keep that a secret. all this time.
Because it must be so tempting to tell at least one person.
Yeah, I know.
What do you know who Deep was? I know who he was.
Considering how much exposure he had on that secret as well.
Yeah.
But Holbrook turned it down initially because he thought there'd be like a huge lack of screen time. But he changed his mind after Redford made a personal visit to his house, saying that Deep Throat will be the character the audience will remember the most. And he's not wrong, I don't think. I mean, you always think of these three meetings, definitely.
Yeah, you definitely do. Yeah, they really stick out.
Yeah, and if anyone said to me, if I was an actor and just be like, look, you've got all the information, you got to be really, really shady, and Gordon Willis is going to shoot you in an underground garage with a backlit dark, and you get a smoke tabs, I'll be fucking straight in there.
And it's Redford telling you that as well. I'll do anything Redford tells me to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm in, Bobby.
You get to look like you've got more intelligence than Robert Redford, and he's panicking in front of you. Yeah, okay, I'll do that.
He's sweating.
No problem. Yeah, he's sweating, and you're not. Amazing.
Well, I love the scene where Bernstein takes a little trip down to Miami to speak to Dardis about Barker's phone and banking records.
Yeah.
Great. He's been brought down under seemingly false pretenses and is left waiting all day, smoking at least 3 packets of cigarettes.
Outrageous. Constantly.
Spilling over. I like that the secretary calls him Bernstein and stumbles over the pronunciation when she's on the phone. Another error that makes it in the film. Despite being hailed as one of the most accurate films ever, this moment where he dupes the secretary with a phony phone call, that isn't true.
No, that was in his version of the script, wasn't it? That he wrote with his wife. Which
that
we'll
was
get into.
That's exactly,
Bernstein tried to be. It's classic Bernstein, that, isn't it?
Yeah. Big
Look how much comedy japes can I get up to?
Exactly. Like, that's the most like Hollywood version of anything in this film. It's just ridiculous. It wouldn't happen. His voice is exactly the same on the phone as well.
Yeah, it is. It is exactly
and he's only
been
gone 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder who this could be. It's like when Homer rings up trying to pretend to be Mr. Smithers.
Mr. Burns.
What's your middle name? I don't know.
Great. But I like this scene because it shows Bernstein's journalistic skills. It's a nice cheeky move to get rid of the secretary. Shows he can think on his feet, and he is quite crafty. And when he doesn't get what he wants from Dardis, he plays hardball to make him crack. And a great performance from Ned Beatty as well.
Yeah, one scene in the entire film.
Yeah, he's unreal.
Hoffman on the phone to Redford straight after it, sweating in the Miami heat. Just a great image.
So giddy as well, isn't he?
Yeah. Fantastic. I'm coming home.
He said that? I got it in my notes. Doesn't mean it's fact. I've got loads of shit in my notes. Doesn't mean it's fact.
What about you, Matt, on this sequence?
Yeah, that phone call, Woodward makes to Dahlberg. Like, I've never been as enthralled by a telephone conversation in my life. And I mean telephone conversations I've had with other people. No one has been as interesting as this one. Like, the sheer patience to hold that slow push in for as long as they do.
On a split diopter as well.
Exactly.
That's incredibly hard to do.
That is. And the thing is, it's invisible as well for the most part.
It is.
But until you realise it's happening. Now, oh my God, Redford is getting bigger and bigger in the frame as he's getting more and more information, which is how the dude with the Howard one call. Because the clarity of the situation is dawning on him. I think this has to be the moment where, if you're on the fence, this is the moment where the film just hooks you. You're like, I have to know what's going on from here, because it's another example where Pakula uses visual information to tell the story really well. The fact that in the background, there's so much noise going on. Everyone's agitated about this story in the background. And that story, it's McGovern, who is the Democratic candidate for president, saying his running mate is dropping out because of the smear campaign, which is the crime that Woodward is getting to the heart of, but we don't know that yet. And that's an amazing touch.
Genius.
That's incredible. It's actually in the background, but Woodward's got to try to drown the noise out to realise it's literally in the background.
And he drowns the noise out visually. Like, it doesn't. It's not audible. It's just visual, because he's obviously, his attention's half and half. That's why it's a split diopter, and then it starts going to his own attention, and he owns the frame, and everything else is blurred. It's great.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. And Redford, just incredible. Like, the tangible excitement he has that he's really onto something. It's a good lead, but he's got to be focused. And it's really funny when Dahlberg goes, I've just been through a terrible ordeal. My neighbour's wife has been kidnapped.
Which is a true story as well.
Which is a true story that happened.
But so what?
Yeah, Woodward, see you on orders. Just goes, well, how do you think your check got under Barker's account? Straight, doesn't pay any attention. And then when Dahlberg wins him back, but he's already on the phone to McGregor the next lead, so you can see he's got like all these plates spinning in the air. And there's that amazing one where he gets the names wrong. But it says Mr. McGregor, Dahlberg. And that was a genuine fluff by Redford. You can see the panic in his eyes. For a split second, he's gone, I just mucked this incredibly intense take up.
6 minute take.
Shot.
6 minutes. And it's at the end. He's like, have I mucked it up? And he continues on. And it's brilliant how they kept that in. So that's a
brilliant
great
how it
touch.
keeps going. And she comes back with her line and he's like, Carl Bernstein's on the phone, and then he picks it up and he delivers that on top of making a mistake. It's great.
The setup of that
incredible.
scene.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And Redford's delivery, he's got to remember his lines, he's got to remember his mark, but he's got to keep it interesting in the frame with facial expressions where he's hanging on, waiting on the other end of the phone. It's an amazing performance.
It is. It's just the way it goes between the two. Mr. McGregor, can I put you on hold? Mr. Dahlberg, can I put you... And he's just... and then to load a typewriter and then go on for it, it's like, after that, I couldn't do it. It's impossible.
Yeah, wonderful. Following this scene, Woodward and Bernstein find out there's a whole rat's nest of illegal shit going on at Creep. They press a colleague for a list of employees at Creep and go door to door for information. And that's the sequence that we're talking about here. And I'm going to start us off. It's made very clear that nobody wants to talk to these guys. They're getting the door slammed in their face. The moment when they get to Betty, but she's clearly terrified to say anything. And they go back and she slams the door, she's almost crying. They'll see great performance.
Yeah, it's amazing. Had the raincoat over his head and I thought he'd go, like, if she lost her mind, what the fuck is going on?
So these guys are completely at a loose end and nowhere to turn. So when they finally get to speak to somebody who's so accommodating and welcomes them in, it's such a relief.
It is,
But then you get the gut punch that she isn't the right Miss Abbott. And we're right back to where we started. And the lighting and framing of that scene when compared to the one with Betty is just fantastic. There's such a huge contrast because Betty's partially obscured by the door. She's in the shadows. Very little looking to come out. She's clearly got something to hide. But Miss Abbott, she's fully in the frame. She's beautifully lit. Nothing to hide. You could watch this without dialogue and understand what's going on.
Absolutely.
It's magnificent stuff.
Yeah. Just another masterclass in slow burn storytelling, which you get with Bernstein when he goes to see the bookkeeper, because again, it's just these small little visual details. The fact that the posts on the staircase frame the bookkeeper perfectly, and it's that obstacle in between her and Bernstein. And it's just perfect because it's the fact that Bernstein has to play it so carefully because she is so paranoid about giving something away. But he's the one that should not be in this situation of the two of them, because he's the one who's always jumping ahead. He's the excitable one. This is not a good assignment for him to do. And this is without a jug of coffee down his throat because he's got to stay there so long. And you can tell that being patient is absolutely killing him here, and he can barely do it. He can barely keep the reaction off his face when she casually drops in that they brought in $6 million. And he's just like, 6 million? Okay, just I'll make a little note of that. And you can tell like his head is just exploding inside. Like the steam's coming out of his ears. And Jane Alexander, I mean, she's so good here. You know, she has the scene and then the next scene, and that's it. And she's really good. You can see it's almost painful for her to open up. You can feel that conflict because she knows what's been going on isn't right, but she's also extremely fearful for her life. And this is the first time you start to think, actually, there could be serious repercussions for anyone who does speak up about this. And I think it's when the film takes a real dramatic turn. It then ends with this huge release of tension when he gets back to Woodward and all that caffeine is racing through his system and he can't sleep still and he can't stop rabbiting on. And Woodward's reaction to all those like scraps of paper he's thrown at him, and he's like, these are the notes. Like, how is he supposed to make sense of any of this? And that cookie throw from Bernstein Woodward, that's really good. Don't want a cookie, goes away. It's just the perfect amount of comic relief to dial down the tension a little bit that Bernstein has been feeling. But then the snap right back into it, that tactical thinking, like what they're going to do next, right? If we say we know P is Porter, what if P isn't Porter? Well, then we're screwed. It's brilliant.
Everything's hanging on this.
It's that great line as well when she's not giving him enough and he's like, coffee's cold. And he's just he's prepared to drink the cold coffee and go through it all until it heats up again. You know, this is a great moment where you just like he's prepared to do anything.
Her delivery when she says, if you guys could get John Mitchell, that would be beautiful. That the power and the emotion and what that means to her is there for all to see. She got Oscar nominated for those two scenes.
Wow.
Incredible.
Wow. Amazing.
Incredible work.
Westy, what about you?
I mean, I'm the same. I'm gonna stay on that performance because when they come back the next day and they've got the plan and they know what they're going to do and they're going to try and, you know, cheat her out of it really by pushing things other ways and saying P and P is Porter. And I would have fucked that up completely. I would just be like, what's my line? Right, so can I have a P?
Can I have a P, please, Bob?
Just in there. Just first up the stairs. I would have absolutely knocked it up. But it's just wonderful by the way that's delivered. I think it's wonderful the way it's shot. And it's, you know what else is wonderful in this? The sound design. Because finally we're at peace. And it's just birds singing, and it's peaceful, and it's the truth. And they're getting it in an honest way, and it's natural. It's a natural truth.
Natural light, no shadows.
Exactly. It's everything's there to play for. She's sat by herself behind a table, and she's giving it her hair's down. She's got no more defense. It's not even that long, this sequence. I would say it's a couple of minutes, but it reveals everything. It cracks the whole thing wide open. And I love the fact when he's going, how much did he get? 25 grand? Was it more?
Yeah.
50? And he's just pushing and pushing one up his Porter, and then she just says, who told you about Porter?
Yeah.
And there's that silence, and you go, oh. But it gives you, what does it give you? 8 seconds, and then it's typewriter again. Bang, 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 bang. Oh, for fuck's sake. It's a wonderful, wonderful sequence, and one where they actually win, and what they're doing makes sense, and it's a real kind of, it fills the gas tank again, and you're ready to go.
Yeah. Great. So the film firing on all cylinders now. Incredible work behind and in front of the camera in the second act.
Brilliant.
The crew.
The screenplay for All the President's Men is a complicated story. It's based on the actual Woodward and Bernstein non-fiction novel, also entitled All the President's Men, published in 1974. Complicated story. It's credited to legendary Oscar-winning writer William Gould, one of the very best. And what I think is one of the key factors in making this film as effective as it is the relative simplicity in the writing. I say simplicity. It's still probably the most complex screenplays that I'm aware of.
Yeah, definitely.
If you don't have a background knowledge on the events and the people within, you would imagine that you'd be lost, but I think Gorman writes it in a way that you can still follow what's going on without any prior knowledge.
Well...
But he also does it without spoon-feeding audience information. If you're not listening, then you're fucked.
Yeah, I would really appreciate just a fucking teaspoon every now and again.
But yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's very easy to get lost off. Segretti and Liddy and Creep and Dahlberg and Dardis. It's very tricky, considering we don't see the faces of most of the people that are talked about here as well. Yeah. So it absolutely demands undivided attention. And if your mind does go wandering for a moment or two, you are done for.
Yeah, you're done for. Yeah.
Definitely.
Goldman said it's a very complicated story, and I had to simplify it because the audience cannot keep referring to a scorecard to determine who is who.
Yeah.
And it does have moments of humour as well, which is absolutely essential to keep the tone. Great when they're in the elevator and Bernstein tells Woodward that he shouldn't have told Bradley that they haven't had any luck. He'll jump all over it. And Woodward's like really frustrated. He knows that Bernstein is right, but he's not going to say anything. He looks around. Is there anywhere that you don't smoke?
Yeah.
Great. And Bradley screaming Woodstein is an absolute joy.
Yeah.
So it's just these little nuggets. It's not laugh out loud humour or goofy humour or anything like that, but it's just light moments that the sun comes through the clouds a little bit.
Yeah. Breaks the tension a little bit when it needs to.
When she's talking about the fact that she's separated from the guy who can get the list, and and Hoffman said, you're looking better.
Yeah.
There's that little light laugh. It's great.
Very nice. Yeah. Westy, what are your thoughts on the screenplay?
I don't really know, because I don't know how much of this is Goldman. To be honest, everyone has got something to say about this, and I think everyone wants to do a really, really good job and tell this story and how intricate it really is. I don't really think this can be credited to one person. I think Redford's got a lot to do with it. Pakula's got a lot to do with it. Based on the novel, that Redford give them advice on how to write the novel that it's based on.
I know.
So you've got to go, well, maybe Redford's just, he knows exactly what's going on, and he's got this real confidence throughout the whole film. But I don't feel like he's an actor that's been hired to be in this film. I believe that he's made this film what it is.
Yeah.
He's kind of part of the birth of it. And I don't think Goldman actually put in as much as that he wanted to put in. I think he's been quoted saying that the final film is about 10% of what he actually applied to the script and from the novel and everything else. I mean, he's written some incredible films. He did Butch Cassidy, which is why I think he's in there. He did Papillon, the original Marathon Man. He wrote the screenplay for Misery.
Princess Bride.
Yeah, exactly. And he's done some really, really good films, but I just think, having read about this and done a bit of research on it, Goldman's actually quoted as saying that if he had his time again, he would have avoided this film like the plague. He wouldn't have touched it. He wouldn't have gone anywhere near it.
Yeah. It is a complicated story. Having secured the rights to the novel, Redford wanted to get the thoughts of his friend, screenwriter William Goldman.
Yeah.
He worked with him on Butch Cassidy. That screenplay won an Oscar.
Yeah.
He just set up the meeting so he could get his input when the novel was being finalised. Redford said that he didn't commission Goldman as the screenwriter, but the book's publisher, Simon & Schuster, sent a copy of the novel to Goldman's agent. He passed it on to Goldman, and Goldman took this to mean that he was being asked to adapt it.
Right.
Okay.
And Redford has since said that it was only that they were friends, that he didn't intervene and confess the truth because there were problems throughout the writing process. Goldman's first draft wasn't liked by anyone, and it garnered the nickname Butch Woodward and Sundance Bernstein.
Brilliant.
Great.
Wish I'd have thought of
Yeah.
that.
Do you know who Bernstein was in a relationship with at the time, though? A famous writer?
No, go for it.
It was Nora Ephron.
Oh, right. Okay.
So the two of them together, without being asked by anyone, they wrote a draft, which Goldman was furious about because, for one thing, they were novice writers. He'd won an Oscar. Who were there to be giving him notes?
Yeah, fair.
But he was also unhappy with Redford for suggesting that he take the notes and he take the ideas on board. So eventually it did kind of blow over and they didn't go with what they wrote for the most part. But everyone has since agreed it should never happen in the first place. And Bernstein has said his treatment of Goldman was not sterling.
Right, yeah. It just seems a little bit confused. But by the sounds of things, earlier versions did include some digressions about Woodward and Bernstein's private lives.
Yeah.
Which, a little bit extraneous detail. Woodward had a girlfriend. Bernstein had an ex-wife. Some of the language used to describe women was questionable at best. Lines like leggy, delicious looking, and one woman having the best boobs in Virginia. All of those were removed very early on.
Yeah, it was like Bernstein just made himself look incredible, apparently, with the screenplay.
Yes.
He made himself look like...
Made himself look dashing.
Really dashing, really charismatic, just a man who can get things done and kind of pissed on Woodward altogether. Goldman just left the meeting. When he'd read it, he read bits of it. He said, I'm leaving, fuck this. And Woodward got in touch with Goldman and said, I don't know what 6 things I've done wrong in my life, but that's one of them, letting him write that screenplay.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Amazing. 6 things. Oh, yeah.
6.
Very specific.
I don't know what 6 things I've really done wrong, but letting him write that screenplay is one of them.
Wow.
When Pakula came on board, he asked for multiple rewrites from Goldman. He'd never written so many drafts before. They didn't hit the mark, and the word is that Redford and Pakula made dramatic changes to the final draft, which is what I've been talking about in Goldman's screenplay to get into the shooting script. So I think Goldman would have, to read this novel, try and write a screenplay about this.
Yeah.
And then
it's an impossible task.
But then do it, and then have everyone say, nah, shit.
Yeah, it's shit.
This is better. And then you look reading one that's meant to be better, and it's one of the guys who's written the novel who's in the film bigging himself up. And the other guy saying sorry, and Redford going, I'm not telling you the truth because you're my mate. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's a mess. It's
a real mess.
It is. Well, Redford's biographer claims that as little as 10% of the script was written by Goldman, but Richard Starian, editor-in-chief of Written By magazine, said that he'd seen various early versions of the script and compared it to the shooting script, and said that there were majority of identical scenes, entire sequences, dialogue verbatim, all carried over from draft to draft to draft.
Right. I'd read a lot where it was just, thrown away. But you don't know. I don't think we'll ever know. I don't think we'll ever.
That's the thing, is that it's two sides of the story. But Staten concluded that Goldman was the sole author of All the President's Men. I find it difficult because it's William Goldman, probably the most revered screenwriter of all time.
Of course, it works. I think that's why Redford did it. He said he was going to put one person's name on it. It might as well be Goldman.
Of course. Yeah. But I think it's very clear that there was a lot of fingers in the pie, and
too many.
But what isn't clear is who actually wrote the final script. I think it's more than just William Goldman.
Oh, it's definitely a jigsaw from about 5 different puzzles. Put together, and actually the picture makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing is guaranteed. Goldman conceived of the term "follow the money." The actual term was "trace the money," but Goldman wanted to make it snappier.
Well, that's it.
Checks out.
Just
Good
for
instinct.
Just for that.
Yeah.
Matt, what are your thoughts on William Goldman / everybody else's screenplay?
Well, that's it. I mean, whoever did write it, I think that is very harmonious with what Pakula wanted to do. And that's that sense that take away anything that's Hollywood. Don't suggest this was glamorous, because it wasn't. If the one big fictional invention is that scene with Bernstein and the secretary, I think that's pretty good going, if that's as fictional as it gets.
Yeah.
And it is like what Pakula's direction is like. It's rigorous. You know, they were so intent on making it as truthful as possible. The double-checked every detail, every line in the script before signing it off. And I've got nothing but admiration for a piece of intelligent writing like that assumes you're as clever as it is and you can't keep up.
Yes.
Because what the writing gets across is how agonizing it was to get this story out there, because all it takes is small details to get in the way. Someone doesn't return a phone call, a librarian changes her story, Ben Bradley wants more sources, and the back at square one, and the writing really gets that across. I think it is fair to say for a contemporary audience, a lot of this will be absolutely bewildering. You know, the amount of names and job titles that get thrown out that would have meant a lot in 1975 that don't mean an awful lot now. I mean, everyone knows who Nixon is, but who is Porter? Which one was Haldeman again? Which guy was Sloan, and who did she work for? You know, have Wikipedia open while you're watching this just to keep tabs on everyone. But again,
who's Segretti? Who the fuck?
Exactly. But I do kind of admire it at the same time that Goldman or whoever's gone, no, this is the standard. We're going to keep this right now, and we're not going to dumb it down for everyone to see. Whoever was responsible for it eventually, they did a really good job.
Yeah. Goldman said that he wanted to stay true to the story. He said he felt great pressure because of the scrutiny it would come under from those in the know. He said, I was terrified because you knew that everybody who was going to talk about this film had, at one time or another, been in a newsroom. He said, and I knew that if we Hollywooded it up, we would be in terrible trouble. He said, because everybody in the industry started out in the newsroom.
Yeah.
To keep the screenplay grounded, Woodward was never too far away from drafts with a pen, scrolling passages out, writing words like wrong and no in the margins, where Goldman had taken a few flights of fancy. So Woodward was like, it was almost like Redford. It was almost like, the same kind of character, just having control of this. But again, we can argue this till we're blue in the face, but it's based on truth. If you start manipulating truth, it becomes a parody of itself. The fact that Bernstein scene is actually even in the film is mesmerizing. Goldman's trying to make something entertaining, and how entertaining is the truth?
Exactly. That's why you don't get films to this much level of true detail, because it needs to go through the normal narrative beats. It needs to be exciting. It needs to be this, that, and the other thing. And this really isn't on the surface.
Not on the
page,
surface,
it isn't.
but then again, neither Zodiac really, or neither Spotlight. The films that we spoke about that take huge influence from this. Yeah, it's how to make the truth exciting.
I mean, you can't overlook the influence of Redford in this across all aspects, because he had purchased the rights to the book for, I think it was about $450,000, and that wasn't his money, that was Warner's money, which they'd give him in exchange for he would make 2 films for them.
Right.
And then that's why he felt pressure to star, because Warner's wanted a big name in there, which is then why Hoffman came in as his joint lead, so it wasn't just Redford leading it.
Right.
But ironically, Hoffman himself had wanted to buy the rights to the book, but then he found out Redford had beaten him to it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, well, because it was hot news. I mean, one of the biggest moments in modern American history.
Yeah, it wasn't a million miles away from when it actually happened. We're talking a couple of years later.
It was so bang on the money.
You can see they both bang into it, though. They're both really invested in
they love it.
All of the material.
I think we can all agree, despite not knowing who wrote the screenplay, it is a magnificent piece of writing.
It is. It really is.
Well, our second crew member is the Prince of Darkness himself.
Yes.
Westy's wet dream. It's cinematographer Gordon Willis.
Wet dream and deep throat. I've really done me back in here, haven't I?
Go for it, Westy.
He's just, oh God. What do you say about Gordon Willis? He's just my absolute. Deakins is my hero. Gordon Willis is my hero. Gone Around Hall is one of my heroes. It's just Gordon Willis is one of the first people to stand up, and someone said that's too dark, and he said, "No, it's not." Godfather's too dark. No, it's not. And he has this real demeanour about. If you read interviews, if you see him, he doesn't give a shit about anyone else's opinion. And to me, that is so important as an artist. But he's also incredibly wonderful to work with. Everyone that you speak to who's worked with him, he said he's so understanding. He tries to make stuff work, but he's not a soft touch with it. Some of the films that he's done. Even if you've done Godfather 1, retire.
Yeah.
And then just Godfather 2. Yeah. And then goes, oh, okay, right, what can I do? Before then he works with Woody Allen, makes Manhattan, and makes Annie Hall. Yeah. And he just goes, well, okay. And then does this. And split diopters makes split diopters look easy, and makes, lifting a camera up to the top of a 100-foot fucking library look a piece of piss. And here's Deep Throat. I know exactly how to shoot that then. Okay, we're going to turn that into a cliche in 20 years' time because it's so fucking immaculate.
Yeah.
There's not a shot in this film that doesn't work. And Matt mentioned it before, but that final dolly push where they know, and he comes out and he does the 10-second countdown, and he runs all the way through the office.
Incredible.
And to the elevator. Yeah. The elevator is open at that time, on film, at that time, under fluorescent lights. And I can't even imagine how good he is. He was just a fucking genius. And it's such a, like you said, Luke, you can watch some of this with the sound off, and you know what's happening.
You know what's happening.
Happening. It's just so powerfully done. I would be, if this was me, I would have been an absolute arsehole to everybody. Even if I just shot half of this, I've done half of All the President's Men. Who the fuck are you? That's what I would have been like all the way through. But he wasn't like that. He was a humble man and a wonderful man, and he did some incredible films. And he did this, right? He did The Money Pit.
Yeah,
how do you go from Manhattan, Annie Hall, Godfather 1, 2, 3, All the President's Men, Parallax View, Clute, The Money Pit? All right, fine, and it looks incredible, and it's a wonderful film, and it works. And that's the kind of guy he was, and that's why I love him. And his work here is wonderful. I think he's fantastic. I've got nothing more. I just fucking adore the guy. I watch anything he's done over and over and over again, and that to me is the ultimate legacy.
Yeah. Great, wonderful. Right, match that. Matt? No, I'm not coming to you, Matt.
Thank God.
I'll say what I've got written down just for what it's worth, I suppose. I'll remove it in the edit, probably.
Half of what I've said, obviously.
Yeah. But the split diopter is just off the chain. It's in every scene. It's probably the best I've seen in any film.
It's horizontal as well. There's a bit when he's typing out and they go 4 more years. 4 more years. It's horizontal. No one ever did a horizontal split diopter before. And he's just taking the piss and no one knows about this. Why don't people care more about this?
Yeah, I know.
It's genius, man.
I love that passion. God. There is a great moment of its use when Woodward first calls Deep Throat in the phone booth, and he uses kind of the frame of the phone booth. There's a break between the two lenses.
Always does. There's always a great break. Yeah.
Amazing.
The pillars of the newsroom as well. He uses them really well.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about light and dark, classic visual storytelling stuff, but it's so striking in this film. There's a shot here also when Woodward gets out of the taxi when he's making his way down to the stairwell to see Deep Throat for the first time.
Yes.
Possibly my favourite shot in the film. It just looks so bleak and uninviting, and he's minuscule in comparison.
Yeah.
It's just, it's just a static shot. It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Just the composition of it is just so great.
Beautiful.
Willis said that he was obsessed with delivering information on each cut in the film. Mm-hmm. And keep that in mind the next time you watch it, and you'll see what he means. Mm-hmm. It's really, really striking, the cuts. Matt, do you have anything that you want to say?
I do, but we'll see if it makes it in or not. It's it's probably just not that interesting.
Sorry.
I mean, I'm obviously not going to bother mentioning The Money Pit again. That was going to be my first point.
That was going to be your opening gambit, sure.
Opening gambit, Money Pit.
Great film, that though.
That's funny.
Fucking great film.
I don't remember it looking great, though.
It really does.
Willis, on this, I just think it's a hell of a thing to say to someone like him, your colour palette for this film is going to be mainly beige, brown, and off-white.
Yeah.
And fine. That's absolutely fine.
Tick.
And you counter that with just this incredible use of deep focus, the way the office just stretches off into the background, packed full of extras. It's this subliminal way almost of making it a quite dry story visually exciting. And I think because it's so restrained for the most part, when he does get the opportunity, he can just put in some really striking visual moments. Like one of my favourites is when Woodward comes out of his house at night and everything's really in shadow and he starts running down the street towards the end and he's in silhouette, but he's running towards the light, and obviously that sounds very on the nose when you say it out loud. Oh, he's running towards the light, towards the information I need. But the way Willis renders it, it's anything but. Can only agree with everything you have said. It's just outstanding work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, his work here, it should be taught in film school, telling the story through shot choices alone. And like I've said, him and Pakula working together, there's magic captured on screen that I've rarely seen. So outstanding work all round from the crew. David Shire's music can't go unspoken, nor can Robert Wolf's editing. But in Goldman and Willis, you've got two masters in their field at the top of their game.
Yes.
The end.
Into the final act of the film, new characters are introduced, muddying the waters for Woodward and Bernstein.
Yeah.
We're starting this section with the introduction of Donald Segretti and ending it with Woodward's second meeting with Deep Throat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, would you like to go first?
Yes, I would, because up until this point, everything's just been so stop-start for them. They get names, but the names won't talk. The indictment for the original burglars, it's going to be sealed until after the election, which renders the investigation useless. They get John Mitchell on the phone, but he tells him he's going to put Katie Graham's tit in the ringer over this.
Yeah,
which is,
outrageous language.
Outrageous.
Remove the word tit, it's a family newspaper.
That's a great line. But that's the thing. This is when you feel Ben Bradley is finally on their side, and he's frustrated because he knows something's there, and whatever it is, it's big, and he just needs someone to go on the record. And you get that great scene where it's just the three of them at the office at night, and he's asking, can I trust Deep Throat? And then he tells him about that time he ran the story about Hoover getting moved on from the FBI, but he was fed a full story, so they rang him up and said, call Ben Bradley and tell him, fuck you,
Yeah.
Just
great.
when he just bridges the distance between them. It's like, I've been where you guys are, so now how difficult it is, but you've got me back in it, and it's great. And that's important because then they get this new name, Segretti, someone who they find out he's been going across the country, which just opens up the investigation even further. It's no longer just a Washington story. It's everywhere. The FBI know this guy. It's nationwide. In that image, you get a Woodward and Bernstein cross-legged on the floor. All the evidence of Segretti's movement spread out. So it's like a literal map of the case. It's like a literal map of what's going on in their head. It's like what Westy is saying about the Deep Throat meetings. It feels like a cliche now. That type thing, but this is the film that invented that cliche, so you've got to respect it.
Well, I'm going to touch on the meeting between Bernstein and Segretti. When Bernstein gets there, he says that I've been sent by my paper to try and persuade you to go on the record. And when he says that, he starts to laugh. Like he must have said this to everyone he's spoken to and been rejected at every turn. So much so now that it's become funny, he's kind of like at the point of delirium. You're not going to do it, I know. And not to labour the point, but the theme of light and dark is continued here. Segretti is framed in the dark when he's reluctant to talk, and in the light when Bernstein manages to kind of get him to open up.
Yeah.
And again, this is Bernstein using his journalistic instincts to get what he wants, because he kind of befriends Segretti here. He's almost complimenting him about his political endeavours.
Yeah.
And I think Segretti is flattered by it, which is why he opens up, and that's when he's framed in the light inside.
That's the charismatic nature of that character. That's what I was talking about, what Hoffman brings to it. It's really charismatic.
Yeah, he kind of opens him up.
Yeah.
And which is why he blabs about the rat fucking.
Yeah.
Great. What about you, Westy?
Me, I'm going to go for the second meeting with Deep Throat and how it differs to the first. In that there's a lot more weight to this. It's a lot heavier. It seems a little bit darker. It seems a little bit more loose in the way that they're framed. They seem a little bit wider in the frame. There's a lot, you can look around them and see what's going on. And I know you mentioned before that, it doesn't have the classic action beats. This is as close as we get to a car chase. Sense again of orange and teal, it really works. And then he's like, did you change cabs? Is he starting to doubt what Woodward's bringing to it? Is he starting to doubt, should I be talking to him? Should I be doing this? Is this the right thing? And again, you can just see this real tension, and the paranoia starts to build. And I don't really think it's necessarily the meeting between the two. I think it's the way that Woodward leaves this meeting and the paranoia and the way that is shot and the way that that's built. You are just with him every step of the way. It's a screeching car. He turns around to look at it, and Deep Throat's gone like fucking Batman. You know what I mean? He's gone. He's out of there. He knows exactly where he needs to go and what he needs to do. And there's that incredible scene where you just have him running. He just starts to run down the street, and he turns, and this is the closest you're going to get to a horror beat ever from Pakula. And he does that push in.
It's amazing.
As he turns, right, and then there's nothing. And you just think, I'm on edge. I need this to be over. I want this to be finished. Give us some information, for fuck's sake. How on earth do I keep going? How on earth do I keep going as a viewer through this? And then you think, how on earth did Woodward keep going? How on earth did Bernstein keep going? And it really is almost like a full stop, but you don't want to stop. Almost like the end of a chapter, and you're like, okay, let's start again. Here we go. And it really questions your ability to connect with the film. It really pushes you as a viewer. Now it's a paranoid mess. And we have to keep going.
Yeah. I mean, that push in
Yeah.
to Redford's
great.
face.
That's just that turn.
Yeah.
It turns into it as
So
it
dramatic.
pushes. It's like, Willis just, when has he used that in the whole film? Never.
I know, never.
Never ever uses like a push in like that.
It's so
ever.
out of kilter, isn't it?
It's so out of kilter, but he knows what he's doing. He's like, we're just going to do like almost like a crash zoom here. It's like Tarantino's ripped that off left, right, and centre, but he used it here to like I say, to aid the story. Everything is done to aid the story to push the viewer further and further away from their comfort zone, which is what makes it an incredible film.
I mean, amazing.
Yeah.
By the time we get to the end of the film, Woodward's paranoia is as obvious as Bernstein's desperation.
Yeah.
Sloan denies to the news that he implicated Haldeman, and Bed Bradley is pretty pissed about that.
Pretty pissed.
Bernstein!
That's great, though. So good. No matter how many times we mention it, it's still fucking great.
Funny. Yeah.
We're focusing our attention on the film's final stretch, starting with the third and final meeting with Deep Throat and ending with Nixon being sworn in for 4 more years.
All right.
Third meeting with Deep Throat. You mentioned that shot to Redford. That's like a horror shot.
Yeah.
A horror beat. I think this is very similar, this scene.
Yeah.
It's one of the most iconic scenes in the film, probably the most, and it's terrifying.
I think they're framed on opposite sides as well on this one.
Yes, they are.
They're always one to the other. And then this, like, Redford takes the role where he has more information. And he just throws the audience off. It's genius.
It's like a horror movie scene, I think. It's the spine-tingling dialogue delivered with, like, the deathly caress by Holbrook.
Right.
And he says, the list is... he says, thanks.
Yeah, lovely that. I was into that. That was lovely. Deathly caress.
He says that the list is longer than anyone can imagine. It's incredible. It leads everywhere. Get out your notebook, there's more.
Yeah.
Your lives are in danger. Shit! What's this?
I expected it to cut when he says, get out your notebook, there's more.
Yeah.
And I expected it just to be like, cut there. And then,
The fact is that we just don't know what's going on. Whereas in the dark, as Woodward and Bernstein, we think they're there, and then the rug gets pulled out from under us. We think they're there, and that happens throughout the film.
Yeah.
But we know, because of the way that the film is shot, because of the music, we know it's life and death stuff.
Yeah.
Dirty tricks are all over town. It's probably the biggest political story in history.
Yeah.
And Woodward and Bernstein are right at the center of it. That is horror movie stuff.
Yeah.
Really
Incredible
is.
scene.
Yeah.
And Redford's dumbstruck reaction when Holbrook is saying these things to him and his delivery, they're just second to none. That scene it's magnificent, and it's a minute.
Yeah, it is. If that, yeah.
It's incredible. What about you, Westy?
I'm going to go for when, our lives are in danger.
Yes.
And he gets it, and he has to go back and he has to tell Bernstein about it. But how do you tell him about it? Oh, you just play Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3 as loud as you possibly can. Just because when I'm like, the sound design all the way through this film just triggers my anxiety so much. And it's like, oh, that's what I need. Rachmaninoff right about now. Okay, cheers. And it's and you're reading it and it's just one after the other. And it's the reactions from both of them. I think they just know that they've found something. They know that they've got somewhere. And with that choice of music, it doesn't seem like it's foreboding. It doesn't seem like it's a damning thing. It seems like almost like a celebration. It seems very Kubrick to me. It seems very like Barry Lyndon. It's like that could be the final track of the whole film. The credits could roll on that music.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you know what I mean? It's real kind of like a celebration. It's orchestral celebration of we found something. Our lives are in danger. Isn't that amazing? Because we've obviously found out the truth.
Because we obviously gone the right way.
Yeah. And it's to me it's a counterbalance, and that's why I really love this scene. And it's got that, it's probably one of the first ever iterations of sending a WhatsApp message to somebody ever. It's just like, listen to this, and you're reading it and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, right? Okay, okay, our lives are in danger, and this, and it paints that picture. But I just think it's wonderfully done, and the way Redford comes in and he's just like, shh. No, bang, 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 and Bernstein's like, oh, please. And they're both at this point thoroughly understand each other. They are now an absolute team.
They're completely in sync.
You know for a fact that Bernstein's not going to say a word when he turns that music on, and he's just wants to read what he types. And that's genius, because us as an audience want to read what he types. What does he know? He's got his notebook out and he doesn't read his notebook. That's how important this information is. It's all in his head and he knows it. Because he knows it's now fact, and they've now got it in what a scene it is.
Yeah, incredible stuff. What about you, Matt? Bringing it home?
I'm bringing it home because, like one word we've used a lot is this film is rigorous, and it's on the details of the job. So when you do get these moments of like kind of light and levity or humanity, for want of a better word, breaking through, it really resonates. So the story's gone back and forth, and they've ran it and it's been denied, and the editorial team don't know what to do next. So when Bradley just goes, fuck it, let's stand by the boys.
Yeah.
It's like, yes.
Yeah.
Come on. Ben's on the side now. Everything's going to be okay. And famously, this came out, the same year as Rocky. And Bradley speaks to them at the end when they stood outside his house in the middle of the night, and they've got the confirmation. That speech is as inspirational as anything you get in any Rocky film. When he says, nothing's right on this except the First Amendment of the Constitution, freedom of the press, and maybe the future of the country. Not that any of that matters, but if you guys fuck up again, I'm going to get mad. And then he just sends them off to do it. It's amazing. And, as we said, David Fincher loves this film. And the way that Woodward and Bernstein go off into the night with that music, that is absolutely the last scene in Zodiac between Gyllenhaal and Ruffalo in the diner. Yeah. When Gyllenhaal lays it all out and Ruffalo just walks away with the information. That is absolutely taken from this.
Yeah.
And then it just ends on, it's one of my favourite endings of all time because, again, it's just this masterclass in visual storytelling. Another spit diopter. Yeah. Woodward and Bernstein working away in the story in the background, while in the foreground, Nixon is getting sworn in on television, but completely obvious to what's going on, which is that literally and metaphorically in the background, they're working on the story that's going to bring him down.
Bring him down, yeah.
Brilliant.
And to leave it like that with no dialogue, with the gunshots on the inauguration taking on a different significance. They're supposed to be there to celebrate. We're surrounding the president. No, they sound more like warning shots over the bow, what's coming for him.
With the typewriter as well. It's
with the typewriter as well.
Yeah.
To wrap it up like this, despite the fact the rest of the story doesn't get told, like this is kind of half of what actually happened. It shouldn't feel as satisfying as it does, but it's perfect.
Yeah, it is.
I think you're just exhausted by this point, and you want to know that you're the one, and you have that teleprompter. It's like it's like a machine gun going off, as if they're gunning everybody down who's guilty.
Yeah,
it's like a firing squad, and it's a firing squad of information kills. And when that final note hammered home on that typewriter, it's bang, Nixon, boom, and then it's silent. Thank God, thank God, it's silent. Wonderful.
So ending with relative quiet, our boys have finally got to the bottom of the story, but it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Reception and awards.
All the President's Men was rated PG upon release, unusual for a film with a plethora of F-bombs. It would automatically be rated an R now, but the MPAA have made some strange decisions in the 70s. I mean, Toby Hooper tried to get PG for Texas Chainsaw, for example.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
So
you don't really say anything, do you?
They could obviously be gotten to.
Whatever, Toby.
At an advanced screening of the film, Goldman and Pakula were very nervous because it was met with scattered boos when the titles kicked in. Some people walked out whispering, "Smear job," and then there was silence. And Goldman and Pakula thought they were going to get beaten up. But the silence broke out into mild laughter when the tone lightened in the film slightly. Goldman said silence had meant immersion, and from then we knew we had them.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And that was echoed when it received its general release in April 76. Widespread acclaim was given to the film. Variety said, ingenious direction and scripting that overcame the difficult lack of drama that a story about reporters running down a story might otherwise have. Gene Siskel gave it 4 out of 4. The headline of his review said, excitement from pillar to post. And he included it on his best films of 1976 list. And the main man, the man himself, Roger Ebert, what do you think?
3.
I think he would go with 4.
Split the difference. He gave it 3.5 out of 4.
Right, okay.
He said it succeeds brilliantly in suggesting the mixture of exhilaration, paranoia, self-doubt, and courage that permeated the Washington Post as its 2 young reporters went after the presidency. A negative review from New West magazine said that the film missed the opportunity to explain the implications of the Watergate scandal and the pathology that drove the conspirators. But of course, the intention of all involved was not to make a film about those things.
Well, I mean, that's an entirely different film. From an
it's a
entirely
different film
point of view.
from a different point of view.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly what you're talking about. And now All the President's Men has a big time 94% on Rotten Tomatoes and an IMDb score of 7.9 out of 10. Less than Sin City, which is baffling.
Well, I mean, you kind of... okay. Baffling for you.
It was a big hit with audiences too. Amazingly, it earned almost 9 times its budget.
Wow.
$70.6 million from a budget of 8.5 domestically. Considering the relatively elevated subject matter, pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah, ridiculously good.
I suppose there's probably people wanting to know what had happened, though.
Because it was at the time.
Because it was at the time, you know.
They knew that. Redford knew that. He knew it was hot. It's a hot potato.
Yeah, really hot on it.
Is. Yeah. Like if we'd waited 10 years, I don't think it would be anything.
No, imagine this coming out now. No one give a fuck.
Yeah, exactly. You'd be like,
I don't give a shit.
Give a shit, man.
Yeah.
And to complete the hat-trick, All the President's Men got its fair share of exposure during awards season. It was nominated for 9 BAFTAs and 4 Golden Globes. It didn't win, but was more successful at the Oscars. It was nominated in 8 categories. It won 4 awards: Best Supporting Actor for Jason Robards, Best Screenplay, Best Art Direction, Best Sound. I mean, I think that's fair enough.
That's very fair enough.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Especially Robards.
Definitely.
Especially the art design as well. And the sound design.
Yeah, and the sound, and the screenplay. So awful.
That's the worst point we've ever made. Like, particularly that one. Actually, all of them.
Actually, all of them. Yeah. Actually, the art design works.
We agreed with the point, and then individualized the points, and then came back to doing it as a group again.
Absolutely ridiculous. Do you know what I really loved about this? The art design and the sound and the it all works.
It did have some stiff competition in the major categories. Rocky, Taxi Driver, Network, all were released in 76.
Yeah, big year.
Big year. So success on all fronts for All the President's Men, whose influence can still be felt today, with the likes of Best Picture winner Spotlight from 2015 taking direct influence from the film.
Massively.
Definitely.
All the Right Movies ranking.
Now all the votes have been cast. We're about to reveal if All the President's Men has been elected the winner. It is, of course, the All the Right Movies ranking, the world famous All the Right Movies ranking.
World famous. Amazing.
No dirty tricks here.
No.
Our scores for the film, first of all, Westy, over to you.
Me first. Harsh.
Yeah, you first. Why not?
But I don't know, because I'm an idiot. No, look, I mean, I did struggle with this film when I thought I'm going to have to talk about it, because it was a very daunting thing.
Very
to
wordy.
Have to understand it, to get it across to people, for people to listen to a podcast on it, and for us to say, or for me to say personally, I understand it from start to finish. And I don't, there's still some characters in there I don't know who the fuck they are. There's still some plot left and right that I don't quite know why. At the same time, I don't really think that's very important. I think it's more important that people stuck to the guns and made a film that doesn't fall back on that. And I don't think many films are made like this anymore, where people just go, this is the truth. This is what happened. If you don't like it, don't watch it. If you're not into it, it doesn't matter. But even from that point of view, it makes it so engaging and so much of a film that you want to dive into and know about. Even now, I want to know more about it. Even now, I want to be more involved in it. Even though I've seen it so many times for this, it is a perfect film. It is perfectly shot. It's perfectly acted. It's perfectly written. The music is there where it needs to be. The sound design is incredible. Just because I don't get it on every single conceivable level doesn't make me a moron. It doesn't make it a bad film. It makes it a perfect film, because that's what art is. That's what cinema is. And it should challenge you, and it should question it, and should push you, and you should work harder to understand things. And for that reason, it's an absolute 10.
Yes!
Wonderful.
Very nice.
Unexpected.
Excellent, that, Westy.
It has to be.
I'm going to go second, because I don't think this is going to be any surprise at all. I came to doing this film, and it was quite daunting, because it's a really complex story.
Agreed.
And I felt as though I needed to know everything about Watergate to be able to speak confidently and do a podcast on this film.
Same.
Yeah.
So I watched that stupid Watergate documentary.
Oh, I didn't.
That's on for like 10 hours.
I just panicked.
Right.
I didn't do anything about it. I just sat in panic. I just didn't sleep for a week. Just kept watching the film, worrying that I didn't understand it.
This film's a revelation every time I watch it. Its subject matter is something that really interests me, but that's never going to guarantee a good film. What elevates it to elite level movie status is all part of the creative process firing on all cylinders. Performances, music, direction, editing, cinematography, writing, of course, made all the more remarkable considering the lack of traditional movie beats, like I said. It would never get made now, which is a sad state of affairs for me. Like, from a visual point of view, this is as impressive as any film that I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If all movies were like this, it would be a perfect world. It's one of the easiest 10 out of 10s I've ever given.
Lovely.
Wonderful.
Yes. Matt, final one.
It's a film I find so enjoyable. Like I said at the top, it's about a topic I'm really interested in, and it's told through a particular narrative of crusading journalism, which at its best I'm a complete sucker for. And yeah, it's where you said, Luke, it's still best in class. It's still the best example of this genre. The adherence to realism and truth from everyone. No one is trying to make it about them. Pakula isn't trying to show off what he can do as a director. Redford and Hoffman, they're not trying to show off what they can do as actors. They're just all on the same page.
Yeah.
And the ironic thing is, because they're not making it about them, they turn in some of their best work.
Exactly.
They're just very so focused on what this story is and what it should be. And yeah, you can see, if someone comes new to this, they would be absolutely lost. Porter, Magruder, Segretti, Haldeman, who? I thought this was about Nixon. Where's he in this? When's he going to turn up? But that's part of the thing I love about it. I love just the unrelenting, unstinting intelligence behind it, the refusal to dumb anything down, going, no, this story needed to be told then. But it's told so well that even if some of the details are a bit fuzzy to a contemporary audience, it's still just such an engrossing film. So yeah, it is absolutely a 10 for me as well.
Woo!
Nice.
Full marks.
Full marks. Lovely.
Full marks from the three of us, and we've got our fourth score for All the President's Men. That's coming from our expanding Twitter followers.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have the score, but first I've picked out some choice comments.
Okay.
Sue Taylor and if I've got this pronunciation wrong, then forgive me, Sue. Nifafia.
Okay.
She said,
Fine.
When you know what happens but are still on the edge of your seat, brilliant film. That's it.
Well, yeah, I wish our name had been less complicated. And our name should have been as uncomplicated as our comment.
True that. Silverfang 2021 official at Silverfang 2021 said, could only vote 10 on this because there weren't any higher options. Absolute genius piece of filmmaking that has withstood the test of time.
True.
And there were a lot of various positive comments. One person said, if whoever's voted 7 doesn't understand the film, which opened up quite a dialogue, but it wasn't without its detractors either.
Yeah.
Again, pronunciation, Churankiko at Churankiko1 said 3. Tried watching it, could never finish it because I kept falling asleep. Boring.
That's not the film's fault.
No.
That's yours. So get some more kip, watch it again, enjoy yourself.
Sure.
Yep. Have some coffee. Like Bernstein.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
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 I'm coming home.
And finally, James McSweeney at James_McSweeney said, controversially, 2. It was all based on lies.
Oh, right. Sweeney. Right. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure he's diligently researched that
I'm sure he has. Yeah.
from appropriate sources and double-checked everything to Brent Badley's satisfaction.
So gathering all of the scores together and getting an average, what do you think of All the President's Men? What do you think it got on Twitter, fellas?
8.5. Did you do 0.5 on Twitter? 8.
We do.
I'd say 8.5.
You can't vote 0.5, but when we average, we do take the 0.5.
Yeah, I'd say 8.5.
I'll go smidge high and say 9.
Ooh, you're both wrong. It scored a very high 9.5 out of 10.
Wow. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Just missing the top spot.
Good.
Yeah.
Damn shame.
It was just them comments that you chose kind of threw us off a little bit. Someone gave it a 3 and a 2, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Well, I just think naturally it's going to be 10 all day long, so I thought I'd throw in some negative comments just to kind of balance it out.
Yeah.
So with ours and the Twitter score combined, that leaves All the President's Men with a hugely impressive 39.5 out of 40. You can go to alltherightmovies.com/leaderboard to see where All the President's Men matches up against all the other films that we've covered on our classic podcast.
Yep.
As mentioned at the top, you can sign up to be an ATRM Patreon supported by visiting patreon.com/alltherightmovies. You get access to all of those podcasts that were mentioned at the top, have a say in the films that we cover and the score they get. And you can also buy our podcast individually on our website, alltherightmovies.com.
Yes, you can.
Don't forget that if you are an ATRM patron or you do subscribe to us on Twitter, you can be part of our exclusive Twitter community. Loads of great chat on there. We're in there as well. We'll leave if that would make things more appealing to you.
Of course, yeah. You don't need us banging on about shit we've already banged on about.
Just listen to that for 2 hours.
You know our opinion
and a
on
half. Join us again on All the Right Movies when John, Matt and Westy will be talking about a huge film, possibly the greatest ever sequel made.
Yeah.
It's The Godfather Part 2.
Jesus.
Excited for that one, fellas?
I'm stressed already.
I'm stressed already.
Sure.
This,
I'm just
and
really
then
Two
that.
big films.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see.
Big it up, Westy. Big it up. This is advertising
Right,
for the
sorry.
next podcast.
Yeah.
Godfather Part 2 is possibly one of my favourite films of all time, and I don't even know where I'm
Wow.
going to start with it. I really don't know where I'm going to start with it. I'm not going to spoil it, 10. I'm not going to spoil the how everything was. I'm just looking forward. I'm looking forward to breaking it down. I'm looking forward to the analysis, and I'm really looking forward to what the other boys think of it. I'm especially looking forward to what John thinks of it, and as you as well, Matt. It's going to be a good one.
Secondary.
It's going to be.
Fine.
Just a year, can't wait, would do.
Yeah, absolutely, can't wait. A huge film, so I'm looking forward to getting into that.
A huge film requires a huge podcast from three great guys, and that's what you'll get in 2 weeks for sure.
Absolutely, we'll try our best as always.
Yeah. Yeah. We won't break your heart.
Oh, nice.
Lovely. Our most recent Patreon exclusive podcast is on From Dusk Till Dawn in Sin City.
Yeah.
Two of the best from Robert Rodriguez. So become a director's chair tier patron to listen to that.
Yes.
The three of us here recorded that and had plenty of fun.
Oh, it was loads of fun.
quite
If you want to listen to us be about fucking 98% less stressed than we have been for the last 2 hours, listen to that.
Yeah. A rip-roaring time.
Yeah, it was great.
If you missed it, we released a new episode of The Life in Movies, our movie interview show last week. I spoke to Greg Sestero, star of notorious cult classic The Room, generally considered the worst film ever made.
Yeah.
I spoke to him about his favourite films. He is a wonderful man.
He's a lovely guy. Lovely guy. Came across really well. Fantastic.
Very nice. And if that wasn't enough, we've got content coming out on social media every day. It's coming out of our asses. On Twitter, we are at AT Right Movies. Some great making of movie threads on there to get your teeth into. They're coming out very often.
They are. The great reads.
Yeah.
Really good.
Fantastic stuff. At all the _right movies on Instagram. On TikTok, we're at all the right movies. Join our Facebook group. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our videos. They're going out regularly and are not to be missed.
No.
If you like the podcast, we'd love it if you could give us a rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Positive for preference.
But asking everyone to do loads of work, but I mean, if you could, it would just be incredible. Like, we're so sorry.
just
like, if you enjoyed it, just give us a little bit. back.
Just say I really liked it 5 stars, and if you want more content, sign up to be a patron. It's not a huge hardship.
No, it's not. I think it's fairly straightforward. I would love to do that.
And our website, the ATRM Hub, with loads of great articles, is alltherightmovies.com.
Yes.
Woo! A lot of stuff coming right at you there. Very nice.
Yes.
And that is a wrap, fellas. A good, solid piece of American journalism there, I think.
I think so.
Now get home and get some rest and be back in 15 minutes. Godfather 2 next.
Godfather 2 next. All right, I'll be here.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.